Drumpftland, or formerly known as. Chapter 2. Caution. Adult subject matter. Use of the N word. Uncomfortable topics. Chapter 2. I'm on the ground with a sheet around me when my parents find me. I hear my father say, distressed, "My baby, please not my baby," as he scoops me up in his arms. I hear my mother crying as he says, "If there is a God, please don't take my sweet baby girl from me." People think people think that atheists don't pray, but we do. Or at least in my family we do. Just because we don't think there is a God doesn't mean we don't hope there is one. We don't want this to be all that there is either. We hope there's a heaven as much as we hope there's not a hell. The Holy Bible, with all its many inconsistencies and contradictions, isn't proof there's a God for us. In my family, we believe Jesus was a real person, that he was probably the first self actualized person. A self actualized person speaking at that time would have amazed people and frightened many others. Perhaps every religion has some part of it right, but here in Drumpftland, you practice the religion they tell you, or you die. I hear voices talking. They sound far away. Lights are shining in my eyes. Dr. Walker is looking at me. I reach up and touch his hair. I remember saying, "So pretty," as I touched it. I wake up in a hospital bed in a private hospital room. My parents are sleeping squeezed together in a recliner. My papa and abuela are in the second recliner. And my granddaddy is curled up in a love seat he's too tall to stretch out on. I'm thirsty, so I'm trying to reach a pitcher and a cup as Dr. Walker steps into the room. "Let me get that for you." And he pours me a cup of water. I manage a raspy thank you. The water feels wonderful on my throat, but a few swallows later, I'm ready to talk and ask Dr. Walker, "How long have I been here?" When you weren't home in time for dinner on Sunday," Dr. Walker informs me, "your parents left to walk to the cross home. And I think your father planned to give them a piece of his mind. They found you on the sidewalk about halfway there. It's now Tuesday, just after 4 a.m. I nod my understanding as my family gathers around my hospital bed. They're all smiling delightedly at me. "Oh, she's going to be fine," declares my granddaddy with a big cheesy grin. My mother tells me, "You gave us a good scare. When we found you lying there like that, we thought you were dead. I nearly had a nervous breakdown." I squeezed my mother's hand assuringly. "But I'm still here for you to fuss at, and you can clean my room like you've been threatening to, and I can't stop you." My mother admits sheepishly, "I cleaned it yesterday." I give her hands an affectionate pat as I respond amused. "Of course you did. Now I won't be able to find anything." My abuela defends, "Everything out everywhere is not an organization system." I tell her with a slight smile, "But it's a system that works for me." "I get it," my granddaddy tells me. "Your office here is neat as a pin, but home is where you get to relax." "Thank you," I respond, managing a loving smile. Finally, somebody understands. "Do you remember what happened?" asks Papa. I have to think about that for a minute, and I respond, "I think I remember most of it." "You don't have to talk about it yet," my mother tells me. "A detective is waiting to talk to you. I'm sure he'll be by later to ask you some questions. We'll listen while you talk to him. We're not going to leave you alone with him. And of course, we'll be coming and going until you're released," my father informs me. I yawn tiredly. I don't know how I'm possibly sleepy. "You need to rest and heal," my abuela tells me. "So just rest." I want to ask some questions about my injuries, but I'm back to sleep before I can ask anything else. By dinner time, I'm ready to go home, whether they think I should or not, and I'm sure most of the nurses would let me walk out if I could. Dr. Walker steps into the room, followed by a very buff, serious man looking, very buff, serious looking man, as a very empty bedpan bounces off the wall by the door. I hate bedpans, I state angrily. I just need some help getting to the bathroom. The nurse responds, but Dr. Washington, they don't want you getting out of bed yet. I don't care what they want, I tell the nurse angrily. If you're not going to help me, then get the hell out of my way. I'll crawl to the damn bathroom if I have to. Oh, Ava, says my mother, still in her white nurse shoes and hospital whites, you're setting a bad example for the other patients. I'm not just other patients. I respond irritated. Now, are you going to help me or not? The serious buff man asked Dr. Walker. Are you sure he was abusing her and not the other way around? Dr. Walker tells him amused. Doctors make the worst patients, and this is her domain. The clinic, urgent care, and hospital. She's used to being in charge here. Outside of here, she's submissive to Mr. Cross. But inside here, for the last few years, she's been the boss. The nurse tells the man, no one wants to be stuck on bedpan duty for a month. Dr. Walker motions the nurse out of the room. Then he steps up in front of me. I'm sitting on the edge of the bed. My right foot and ankle are in a splint, so I'm afraid if I slip off the bed too fast, my legs won't support me, and I'll hit the floor with an inglorious thud. He leans over and tells me, now put your arms around my neck, and he helps me off the bed. Are you steady? He asks me as I clutch my IV pole. I nod. I can make it, as my father steps into the room. You're supposed to stay in bed, states my father, irritated. I sneer at him. I need to pee. Didn't someone come with a bedpan? Asked my father. I tell my father in a very unfriendly tone, you use the damn bedpan, as I slowly and cautiously make my way to the bathroom with Dr. Walker's assistance. Daddy gives Dr. Walker an irritated look, to which Dr. Walker responds, if I didn't help her, she was going to crawl to the bathroom. My mother tells my father, you know she would do it. She's every bit as stubborn and headstrong as you are. I sigh blissfully as my bladder empties into the toilet. I hear my granddad enter the room and ask, you let her out of bed? She's not supposed to be out of bed yet. I didn't let her out of bed, responds my father defensively. They let her out of bed. Dr. Walker informs my granddad. She threatened to crawl if she had to get to the bathroom. My granddad sighs, and she would have. My mother says sarcastically as she looks at my dad. Don't know where she gets that kind of stubbornness from. Oh, he's not that bad, defends my granddad. He's not as stubborn as his mother was. Ava takes after her. I wash my hands before exiting the bathroom and slowly make my way back to my hospital bed where Dr. Walker helps me back into bed as my abuela and papa come in carrying a couple of large picnic baskets. Food, I say ecstatically. Abuela, I love you. She's not supposed to start on solid food until tomorrow morning, protests my father. She has 2 head injuries. She called me and said she's hungry, Abuela informs my dad with a guilty look. Papa shrugs helplessly. I know when I can't win an argument with my wife. I'm starving, I tell my father as Abuela makes me a plate, and I can't get any real food around here. I don't want another damn bowl of green gelatin. Next person that brings me another bowl of gelatin is going to wear it. Daddy reminds me, but you may just vomit it all back up. I ask him seriously, you want to try and bring me another bowl of gelatin? He folds his arms frustrated and I shrug. If I vomit, it's my own fault. Don't worry, Simon, Abuela assures my father. I didn't make her anything heavy. Just chicken and rice pudding. Don't you men have any control over your own women? Asked the buff, serious man. My mother and grandmother laugh hysterically. I laugh too, only to hold my ribs and complain, "Oh, it hurts. It hurts." "Serves you right for getting out of bed," states my father. The buff, serious man says to Dr. Walker, "And this is your host family? How are you coping?" "Actually," shares Dr. Walker with a pleased smile, "I feel right at home." I focus on the serious stranger and look him in his hazel eyes. He has the typical flat top most Homeland Security have, so that much I'm sure of. I ask him flatly, "So, who the hell are you and what do you want?" His eyebrows furrow for a moment, then he shows me his badge. "I'm Detective Robert Reynolds of Homeland Security." I take his badge and look at it. "Sent you in from out of town, huh? Don't trust the local officers to do their jobs properly, or you're here to keep things as quiet as possible. Doesn't matter either way to me. You just need to remember that out there on the streets, while at church, I may have to be a quiet and submissive female, and those lily white nurses working here get to call me nigger whore and gold digger out there, and even church services. But here, I'm the boss, and they jump to kiss my red, white, and black ass. And if they piss me off too badly out there, they'll find themselves on bedpan duty for a month in here." "But you're only permitted to work part time," points out Detective Reynolds. "How can you possibly run this hospital and its adjoining clinic and urgent care?" "Population wise," I inform him, "this is a small district, small enough for everybody to know everyone. The haves are strangers to the have nots because they choose not to know them. The haves prefer to pretend the have nots have enough and ignore them unless one of them looks good enough to have sex with. The she have nots may elevate her family for a time playing cute little mistress to, an, to a fat old fart with too much money. We provide health care to everyone in the district. We know everyone that lives here and all their dirty little secrets. And as long as you're on top of things like I am, things are easily managed here." I direct at my father and grandfathers, "And three somebodies better stay on top of things while I'm incapacitated." All three of them start talking and nodding at once. "Don't worry, we've got it under control." I informed Detective Reynolds. They let me take the administrative and hospital management courses so I could assist in running our healthcare centers. After all, I'm only permitted to work part time, and like yourself, they weren't expecting me to run things. But within 6 months of starting here, I was running the whole shebang. Detective Reynolds gives my father a "what were you thinking" look, to which my father responds, "She's better at it than us. Plus, pediatrics is never overworked. She has more time for it than us." Detective Reynolds shakes his head in disbelief. I tell him, "You weren't sent here to judge us. You were sent here to do a job." I toss his badge to him. "Now do your job." Detective Reynolds takes a deep breath, pulls out an electronic notepad, and refers to it. "Dr. Eugene Washington." "Yeah, that's me, Detective," answers my granddad. "You lost your wife some years ago," states Reynolds. Granddad nods affirmatively. "My beautiful Veronica was raped and murdered in this quiet little district when Ava was 3. They never arrested anyone, but within 6 months after her rape and murder, several men relocated to other districts." Detective Reynolds nods as he looks at his digital pad. "Yes, 3 of those men were arrested and executed for murder in their new districts, and a 4th was arrested and executed for the rape and murder of a child. It was determined that the local Homeland Security officers and detectives failed to do their jobs properly here while investigating your wife's murder, allowing her murderers to get away and murder again. Thus, I am here because we don't trust local officers to do their jobs properly." Granddaddy says, "I bet the murdered women were white and the child was white too." Reynolds' mouth sets in a grim line but admits, "Yes, that's true." Then he pushes forward. "Do you think this incident could possibly be connected to your wife's murder?" Granddaddy shakes his head. "No, I don't believe so. This appears to be some sort of domestic matter. Mrs. Lupe Reed. Yes, detective, answers my abuela. Are your parents deceased? Asked Reynolds. I don't know, answers abuela with a shrug. They were deported back to Mexico for being illegals when our daughter Irina was a little girl. And we're a closed country now. Nothing is imported in nor exported out. I have no way of contacting them, and they have no way of contacting me if they're still alive. But you weren't deported, questions Reynolds. Abuela shakes her head. I'm an anchor baby. I was born here and I married another citizen. Plus, I'm a nurse practitioner. That gives me value here. He consults his digital pad and turns to me. Dr. Ava Washington. I respond with a drab, yep. He asks me, how long have you known Mr. Bryant Cross? I answer, since kindergarten. Would you say you and he are close? Since I'm his only friend, I inform Reynolds, I would say yes, we're close. Do you have a lot of friends? No, not outside of my family, I don't. He asks me, is Mr. Cross close to his family? I inform him, no, they're not a close family, but they manage to tolerate each other. Do you think they love each other? I nod my head slightly. Yes, they love each other. They just don't like each other. Do they like you? I nod my head with a slight bobble. They seem to like me better than they like each other. Do they permit you to speak freely in their home? I inform him, yes, I may speak freely in their home. I am already regarded as a member of the family, and they are anxious to have me as an official member of the family. Reynolds requests of me, tell me about the Crosses. I take a moment to collect my thoughts. Mr. Cross is a hard worker. He and Mrs. Cross have that in common. He is very much about running our district smoothly and well. And she is very much about making her family look like it's running well, which is very much a full time job. Blake is their oldest and their smartest. He has been carefully and meticulously groomed to follow in his father's footsteps. He's sharp, he's sociable, he's athletic and friendly, but you have to be on your toes with him. He reads people expertly. He can tell by facial expressions and body language what's going on in someone's head. And he's not above using what he knows about you to manipulate you. Bronson is their middle child, and he's their dumb one. He's a dumb blonde with light brown hair. He's very friendly, very outgoing, and very athletic. People mistake the stupid things that fall out of his mouth for jokes. They think he's being funny. They don't realize he's just that stupid. He made it through school because hopeful girls did his homework, and young women hoping to become his wife did his homework and papers for him for his university courses. But he does have excellent recall that allows him to remember facts and pass tests on his own. He doesn't understand the answers, he just knows how he's supposed to answer. Blake can see Bronson's life clearly. Bronson will marry and divorce a few times.